Chapter 1. I used to think hatred had a sound. For me, it sounded like laughter, his laughter. My name is Lily Carter, and growing up, there was only one person who could ruin my entire day without even trying. Ethan Blake. My brother's best friend, our neighbor, and somehow my constant shadow. Wherever my brother went, Ethan followed. And wherever Ethan was, I was inevitably dragged along too. It didn't matter if I wanted to play alone, read quietly, or just exist without being noticed. He would always find a way to pull me into his world. "Why are you always so quiet, Lily?" he'd say, grinning like he had just discovered something amusing. And if I answered, he'd laugh. If I ignored him, he'd try harder. If I got angry, that was his favorite reaction of all. "Look, she's mad again," he'd tell my brother like I wasn't even there. I hated it. I hated him. Or at least, that's what I told myself. I remember running to my parents more times than I could count, my voice shaking with frustration as I complained about him. How he teased me, how he wouldn't leave me alone, how he made me feel small without even trying. But every time, the answer was the same. "He's just joking, Lily. He likes playing with you. Don't be so sensitive." So I stopped going to them. Because no one ever listened. And slowly, quietly, something inside me changed. I stopped reacting as much, stopped giving him the satisfaction. I would cross my arms, turn away, pretend he didn't exist. But that never worked either. Because Ethan Blake always noticed me. Even when I didn't want him to. Especially then. And that was the worst part. Out of everyone around us, my brother, our friends, our families, he always singled me out, always looked at me first, always found a way to pull me into whatever game he was playing. It didn't feel like attention. It felt like torment. Endless, relentless. And yet, there were moments, small ones, that didn't fit. Moments I never understood. Like the time I tripped while running and scraped my knee. I had barely held back tears when suddenly he was there, crouching in front of me, his usual grin gone. "Don't cry," he muttered, awkwardly brushing dirt off my sleeve. I stared at him, confused. Because this wasn't the Ethan I knew. But just as quickly as it appeared, it disappeared. "Wow, you're clumsy," he added with a smirk, standing up like nothing had happened. And just like that, I hated him again. Or at least I tried to. Because even back then, at 10 years old, there was something about Ethan Blake I couldn't quite understand. Something that stayed with me longer than it should have. Even when I wished it wouldn't. Chapter 2. By the time I turned 10, I had already decided something about Ethan Blake. He was the worst part of my childhood. Not the schoolwork, not the chores, not even the arguments with my brother. Him. Because no matter what I did, I could never escape him. If I stayed quiet, he noticed. If I spoke up, he laughed. If I walked away, he followed. It was exhausting. And what made it worse was how normal everyone thought it was. My brother would just roll his eyes and laugh along. My parents would smile like it was harmless. Even his parents, kind, warm, always gentle, never stopped him. To them, it was just kids being kids. But to me, it was. It felt like I was always being watched, always being tested, always one step away from being embarrassed. So I built my own way of dealing with him. I ignored him. Or at least I tried to. I stopped reacting as much. I stopped arguing back. I stopped giving him the satisfaction of seeing me upset. But that didn't stop him. If anything, it made him worse. "Wow, she's really pretending I don't exist now," he would say, stepping right into my space. And I would grit my teeth, refusing to look at him. Because if I did, I knew I would lose. And I was so tired of losing. Then one day, everything changed. I overheard my parents talking in the kitchen. "They're moving," my mother said softly. "Next month." At first, I didn't understand. Then it clicked. Ethan's family. They were leaving. I stood there, frozen, my heart doing something strange in my chest. I should have been sad. Our families were close. His parents had always treated me kindly, like I was one of their own. My brother would be devastated. But me, I felt something else entirely. Relief. A lightness I had never felt before. It was over. No more teasing. No more constant attention. No more Ethan Blake. For the first time in years, I would finally have peace. The weeks before they left were strange. My brother spent every moment he could with him, trying to hold on to something that was already slipping away. Our parents talked more, laughed more, like they were trying to pretend nothing was changing. And Ethan, he didn't act any different. He still teased me, still looked at me like I was his favorite source of entertainment. As if he wasn't about to disappear from my life completely. It annoyed me more than anything. How could he act like it didn't matter? The day they left, everyone gathered outside. Suitcases, boxes, quiet goodbyes. My brother looked like he was about to cry. My parents hugged his parents tightly, promising to stay in touch. I stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching. Waiting. For what I didn't know. Then Ethan walked up to me. For once, he wasn't smiling. "You're not going to say goodbye?" he asked. His voice was quieter than usual. I shrugged. Why would I? A lie. But I didn't know how to say anything else. He stared at me for a second. Longer than he ever had before. Then, "Whatever," he muttered, turning away. And just like that, he left. That night, my house felt different. Quieter. Empty. No sudden laughter from next door. No voice calling out my name. No presence that always seemed to follow me around. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. This was what I wanted. So why did it feel so wrong? I turned to the side, pulling the blanket closer. Because for the first time in years, no one was there to bother me. And for some reason, I couldn't sleep. Chapter 3. 14 years passed, and somewhere along the way, Ethan Blake became nothing more than a distant memory. Not gone completely, just buried under years of growing up, new routines, new people, and a life that no longer revolved around a boy who used to follow me everywhere. I told myself I had forgotten him, that he didn't matter anymore. And for the most part, that was true. Until the morning, everything came crashing back. I woke up with a pounding headache, my mouth dry, my mind foggy from the night before. My phone kept buzzing beside me, vibrating nonstop against the bedside table. I groaned, reaching over blindly before finally grabbing it and squinting at the screen. Notifications flooded in, messages from friends, group chats exploding, missed calls, links being sent over and over again. "Have you seen this? Lily, look at this now. Isn't this your?" I frowned, confused, before clicking the first link. An article opened instantly, the headline bold and impossible to ignore. A young, cold CEO rises to the top. Ethan Blake dominates the business world and is now rumored to be searching for a partner. My heart skipped. The name felt familiar but distant, like something I hadn't touched in years. It couldn't be. There had to be hundreds of Ethan Blakes in the world. It didn't mean anything. It couldn't. Still, something in my chest tightened as my eyes slowly moved downward. And then I saw the photo. Everything stopped. My breath caught, my fingers freezing around my phone as I stared at the screen, unable to look away. It was him, it had to be him. But at the same time, it didn't feel real. Gone was the boy I remembered, the one with the round face, the careless grin, the teasing eyes that never left me alone. The man in the photo was different. Sharper. Colder. His features were defined, his expression calm but distant, the kind of look that didn't invite conversation but commanded respect. He looked untouchable. Powerful. Like someone the world revolved around instead of someone who used to spend his days annoying me for fun. I sat up too quickly, my head spinning, but I barely noticed. My eyes were still locked on the image, trying to connect the two versions of him in my mind. It didn't make sense. How could that be the same person? How could the boy I hated become this? My phone buzzed again in my hand, pulling me back slightly as more messages came through. "That's literally your neighbor, right? Lily, isn't that the guy who used to bully you? He got hot." I swallowed, my heart beating faster now for reasons I didn't want to think about. Without thinking, I threw the blanket off and got out of bed, nearly tripping as I rushed toward the door. I needed to tell my family. They had to see this. This wasn't just some random article, this was him, Ethan Blake, the boy who used to follow me everywhere, the boy I thought I'd never see again. And somehow, he had found his way back into my life. Chapter 4. I rushed downstairs, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst through my chest. I needed to tell someone. My parents, my brother, anyone, because seeing that photo had shaken something loose inside me. I almost tripped over the last step, my messy hair sticking out in every direction, my oversized pajamas clinging uncomfortably. And then I froze. The living room. My family. His family, all of them just like old times. Our mothers were talking animatedly in the corner, laughing over some shared memory I hadn't heard. Our fathers stood near the fireplace, deep in conversation, each nodding and gesturing like the years apart hadn't existed. My brother was there too, grinning ear to ear as though nothing had changed. And then I saw him, standing there, leaning slightly against the sofa, calm, composed, effortless. Ethan Blake, my childhood bully, the man in the photo. The one I had thought was just a memory now made flesh and presence in front of me. His eyes found mine immediately and my stomach dropped. I felt exposed, ridiculous, messy, completely unprepared. My hair was sticking out in all directions. My pajamas were wrinkled. I hadn't even brushed my teeth properly yet. And he smirked. That smirk. The one I had hated for years, the one that used to make me want to scream, now somehow made my stomach flip. I wanted to turn around, run back upstairs, hide under my blankets, pretend I hadn't seen him. But of course, my mother's voice cut through my panic. "Lily, go greet them." My feet felt like they were made of lead. I tried to resist, but I couldn't. I forced myself forward, past the chatter, past the smiles, and into the room. He didn't move, didn't approach, didn't do anything except watch me. I could feel his eyes taking me in, taking in my disheveled hair, my pajama shirt, my bare feet, and the smirk never left his face. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my composure, trying to act like I didn't care. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to glare and walk away. I wanted to remind him of every mean word, every teasing moment, every second he had made my life miserable. But something about him now. Something in the way he carried himself, the calm in his gaze, the subtle confidence made me falter. I said a quiet, forced hello, and my family greeted them all warmly, laughing like we had never been apart. Every word, every sound, every smile made my chest tighten. He didn't speak to me immediately. He simply observed, calculating, calm. I wanted to glare, I wanted to push him, I wanted to make him leave, but I couldn't, not completely. And as the introductions ended and I turned to retreat back upstairs, he spoke. "You've grown," he said softly, not teasing, not mocking, just a statement. And my breath caught in my throat. That one simple sentence, calm and deliberate, filled with an unspoken weight, left me unsettled. I wanted to hate him, and yet I didn't. That night, sleep was impossible. I kept thinking about that look, that voice, that smirk that somehow felt different now. 14 years, I had told myself I was done with him. 14 years, I had thought I could forget. And yet here he was, in my living room, in my life. And somehow he had already started to change everything. Chapter 5. After that day, Ethan didn't disappear like I thought he might. In fact, it felt like he was everywhere. I would turn a corner and there he was, leaning against a wall, casually talking to my brother like nothing had changed. He'd stop by our house under some pretense, just to chat with our parents, always letting his gaze linger on me longer than necessary. At first, I tried to act like it didn't bother me. I crossed my arms, turned away, refused to meet his eyes. But no matter what I did, he found me. He always did. Sometimes it was subtle, a glance that caught me unawares, a half smile when I wasn't looking directly at him. Other times it was blatant, like standing just a little too close when I passed him in the hallway or leaning casually against the car as I got in. It was maddening, infuriating, and impossible to ignore. And yet, there was something different about him now. He still teased me, of course, but it was softer somehow. Less cruel, less cutting. It made me notice him in ways I hadn't before. I caught myself looking at him longer than I wanted to, observing the sharp lines of his face, the controlled calm in his posture, the way he moved with that quiet confidence that made everyone else instinctively take notice. I hated myself for noticing, but I did. One afternoon, my brother and Ethan were joking around in the living room while I sat reading quietly in the corner. Ethan's smirk found me across the room. "Still avoiding me, Lily," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I ignored him, keeping my eyes glued to the page. No answer, he pressed, moving closer, standing just a few feet away. My chest tightened. Why did I care so much that he was near? I didn't want to care. I'm reading, I muttered. Clearly ignoring you isn't working, he said with a chuckle, leaning back casually against the doorframe. I scowled, but inside I felt my cheeks heat up. This wasn't the same boy I remembered. The one who used to pull my hair or make fun of me incessantly was gone. This man, this version of Ethan, was something else entirely. He lingered around me more and more over the weeks. Casual conversation turned into longer chats. Teasing turned into something warmer, almost playful in a way that made me laugh without thinking. And for the first time in years, I realized I didn't mind talking to him. I looked forward to his presence, to the little jokes, the quick glances, the way he seemed to notice everything about me. He was making it impossible to stay annoyed. And though I hated myself for it, I couldn't deny the shift in my heart. Slowly, quietly, Ethan Blake was getting under my skin again. Not as a bully, not as the boy next door, but as a man I was beginning to notice in ways I had never allowed myself before. The thought scared me more than it excited me. Because I knew exactly what was happening. I was falling for him, and that terrified me. I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't say it out loud. I couldn't even admit it to myself. And yet, every time he smiled, every time he leaned a little closer than necessary, I felt it. My heart breaking the rules I had set for it years ago. He was playing his old game. Only this time, I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to win. Chapter 6. Everything changed the night I went out with my friends. It was just a casual evening, the kind we did every few weeks, drinks, laughter, letting off steam after work. I wasn't expecting anything extraordinary, just a fun night to forget the stress of life. Until it happened. A stranger started following me, getting too close, saying things that made my skin crawl. I turned sharply, ready to tell him off, to push him away, to make it stop. But before I could react fully, a familiar voice cut through the haze of the bar. Back off. The words were low, firm, impossible to ignore. I froze. And then I saw him. Ethan, my childhood bully, my nightmare, my almost forgotten memory, now standing in front of me like a shield. He didn't hesitate. He didn't joke. He didn't smirk. He just moved between me and the stranger, the angle of his body protective, commanding, and terrifying all at once. The stranger stumbled back, muttering something under his breath, but Ethan's glare didn't waver. One step closer, one word harsher, and the man turned and left without another sound. I blinked, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Ethan turned toward me, calm now, his smirk nowhere in sight. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice quieter, softer, the kind of voice I had never heard from him before. My mouth opened, then closed. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just nodded, my heart hammering faster than it ever had. He offered me his arm, a casual gesture that somehow made me feel safe in a way I hadn't felt in years. I hesitated, then let him guide me toward the door, away from the chaos, out into the cool night air. The city smelled different at night, cleaner somehow, calmer. And yet, my mind was spinning with the realization of what had just happened. Ethan had saved me. The boy who had teased me relentlessly, the man who had haunted my childhood, had just protected me without hesitation. I couldn't stop thinking about it, even as he walked me home. The silence between us was comfortable, filled with unspoken words and lingering glances. He didn't let go of the situation with a joke. He didn't brush it off as if it were nothing. He treated it with seriousness, with care. And that care made something inside me shift. I realized then that I was seeing him differently. Not as the boy who had teased me mercilessly, not as the shadow of my brother's best friend, but as someone strong, someone dependable, someone I could rely on. My chest tightened with a confusing mix of emotions, gratitude, shock, something deeper I wasn't ready to name. By the time we reached my apartment, the streetlights casting long shadows on the sidewalk, I knew one thing. Something inside me had changed. Ethan Blake had crossed a line I hadn't expected. The boy I had hated was gone. The man standing before me was making it impossible to feel anything but drawn to him. And for the first time, I wondered if I could ever go back to feeling indifferent. Chapter 7. I thought I had finally figured him out. I thought I had started to understand Ethan Blake. The way he lingered near me, the quiet attention he paid, the subtle teasing that no longer stung the way it used to. I thought I was ready to face whatever this new version of him meant for me. That illusion shattered one evening when I saw it. My phone buzzed relentlessly as I scrolled through notifications. barely able to focus through the fog of work and exhaustion. Then one article caught my eye. CEO Ethan Blake spotted dining with rising star Ava Sinclair, rumors of romance ignite. I froze mid-scroll, my heart hammering in my chest. I clicked the link and stared at the photos in disbelief. He was laughing with her at a restaurant, her hand brushing against his arm, their smiles wide, intimate, effortless. Every detail cut through me, sharper than anything he had ever said to tease me as a child. Ava Sinclair, elegant, famous, perfect, everything I was. And there I was, frozen, staring at the screen, feeling smaller than I had ever felt before. My stomach twisted, my chest tightened, and my throat felt dry. The words I wanted to scream lodged in my mouth. My first instinct was to call him, to demand answers, to confront the truth. But a sinking feeling told me otherwise. I didn't want to hear him deny it. I didn't want to hear him explain, because part of me already knew the answer would crush me, so I pulled away, slowly, quietly. I stopped responding to messages. I avoided the texts that pinged through my phone. I didn't answer calls. I became cold, distant, a shadow of the girl who had been opening up to him only days before. He noticed immediately. Of course he did. Ethan Blake was not a man who missed details, especially when they involved me. He approached me at work, trying to talk, to joke, to tease, to pull me back into the fold of his world, but I kept my guard up. Every time he looked at me, I felt the ache in my chest, the jealousy, the longing, the betrayal that I hadn't wanted to name. He tried. He really did. But I pushed him away, every attempt, every word, every step closer met with a cold barrier I had built overnight. I told myself it was for my own protection. I couldn't allow myself to feel anything for him, not after seeing him with someone else. But as I avoided him, I felt it more, the pull, the draw, the silent longing that refused to leave me. And then one evening, when the frustration became too much, he confronted me. Anger in his eyes, a hand gripping my arm, voice low but firm. "Why are you avoiding me, Lily?" I wanted to look away, to lie, to brush it off. But I couldn't. Not this time. The words spilled out, everything I had held back, the fear, the jealousy, the heartbreak, the confusion. He listened, silently, expression hardening at first, then softening, and finally a small, incredulous laugh escaped him. "That's my cousin," he said. "The pictures, they lied, she's nothing to me." My heart stumbled, my knees weakened, my world shifted. Everything I had felt, everything I had assumed had been wrong. He had been telling the truth all along. And in that moment, I realized I hadn't just misjudged him. I had let fear control me, and I had nearly lost him because of it. Chapter 8. After the headline, after the photos, I changed. Overnight, I became someone I hardly recognized. I stopped answering Ethan's messages, avoided his calls, ignored him when he showed up at work or at places we used to meet. I built walls higher than I had ever built before, brick by brick, careful to make them strong enough that even he, with all his attention and charm, couldn't scale them. I told myself it was for my own protection, that I couldn't risk letting myself feel for him if he was already taken, even if the truth was that he was. Every time I saw him approach, every time his familiar smirk or that piercing look met mine, my heart twisted painfully, but I kept walking, kept my voice cold and clipped, kept my distance. Ethan noticed. Of course he noticed. He always noticed everything about me. At first, he tried gentle persistence, messages checking if I was okay, casual comments in passing, jokes meant to draw a laugh. I met them with silence or curt replies, and he didn't push further at first. But the gentle attempts soon turned into frustration. The calls became more frequent, the texts more insistent. The casual glances now held tension, confusion, and impatience. He tried to bridge the distance to reach me, but I refused to let him. It hurt too much. Every glance from him reminded me of what I wanted and what I thought I couldn't have. Every word reminded me of the connection that had started to grow, that was now suffocating me with its absence. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know if I wanted to. I told myself it was about self-preservation, about protecting my heart, about maintaining control. But deep down, I knew it was about fear, the fear of realizing how deeply I was already falling for him and how easily it could hurt me again. The tension between us grew. Even when we were in the same room, conversation was minimal, polite but strained. His presence alone was enough to make me uneasy, and my cold distance was enough to confuse and frustrate him. He didn't understand, and I wasn't ready to explain. And then one evening, he cornered me. Anger, frustration, and something like desperation in his eyes. "Why are you avoiding me?" he demanded, voice low, tense, impossible to ignore. My stomach knotted, my chest tightened, my heart threatened to betray me, but I held firm. I couldn't give in. I couldn't let him see how much I was hurting, how much I wanted him, how much I had been silently longing for him all along. "It's nothing," I whispered, turning away, trying to hide the tears that burned in my eyes. But he didn't let me go. He grabbed my arm gently but firmly, forcing me to look at him. "It is something," he said, voice steady but loaded with emotion. "I can feel it. I can feel you pulling away, and I won't stand by and watch it happen without knowing why." I froze, words catching in my throat. How could I tell him the truth? How could I explain the whirlwind of fear, jealousy, misunderstanding, and longing that had taken over me? I opened my mouth to speak, to push him away gently, but the emotions tangled so tightly that nothing came out. He stared, unyielding, determined, unrelenting. And I realized something I had been trying to deny. This distance, this wall I built to protect myself, was breaking us. And no matter how much I wanted it to, it couldn't keep him out, not entirely. Chapter 9. The tension between us had been unbearable for days. I kept avoiding Ethan, dodging him at work, sidestepping him in public, pretending that nothing had changed between us. Every time he tried to approach me, I felt my chest tighten, my throat dry, my hands clench in frustration. It wasn't just embarrassment or jealousy anymore, it was deeper. Fear. Fear of how much I had started to care, fear of how easily I could be hurt, fear of finally admitting the truth I had been denying. He didn't give up. Ethan never did. His calm, persistent presence had shifted to something sharper, more impatient, more desperate. He cornered me one evening after work, grabbing my arm gently but firmly, pulling me out of the crowded hallway into a quiet corner where no one could interrupt us. His eyes bore into mine, intense, unyielding, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. "Lily," he said, voice low, controlled but laced with frustration, "you've been avoiding me for days. I don't understand why." "I need you to tell me." I shook my head, pulling my arm free, forcing my voice to stay steady. "It's nothing," I whispered, though my chest ached. He stepped closer, refusing to let me turn away, his presence overwhelming. "It's not nothing," he said firmly. "I can see it in your eyes. You're pushing me away, and it's killing me. Whatever it is, you have to tell me." I hesitated, my heart racing, my mind spinning with every possibility of what might happen if I spoke. My hands trembled as I finally blurted it out, words spilling over like a dam breaking. I saw the article, the photos, you with her. I thought you were with someone else. I thought." My voice cracked, tears threatening to fall, and I covered my face with my hands. Ethan's hands were on mine in an instant, gentle but firm, pulling them away so he could see me clearly. "Wait," he said, his voice softening. "What article, what photos?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but the hurt, the fear, the confusion tumbled out. "The photos. The one with Ava Sinclair at that restaurant. I thought you were dating her. I've been avoiding you because I couldn't handle it." Ethan blinked, then a small, incredulous laugh escaped him. "That's my cousin," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "The photos were misleading. She's nothing to me." My stomach dropped. Relief, disbelief, and lingering embarrassment collided all at once. "Nothing," I whispered, barely daring to breathe. He nodded, eyes softening, a small, almost shy smile tugging at his lips. "I should have told you sooner, but I didn't want you to worry. I've liked you for years, Lily, always have. Since we were kids, I just didn't know how to say it, so I teased you instead." My chest tightened, tears slipping down despite my attempts to stop them. Everything I had felt, the hurt, the fear, the longing, collapsed under the weight of his confession. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't process the years of misunderstanding in a single instant. He stepped closer, cupping my face gently, his thumb brushing away the stray tears. "I've always liked you," he repeated, voice low, steady, and filled with something that made my heart ache. "I just needed you to know, and now you do. Will you give me a chance?" I stared at him, disbelief and emotion warring inside me. And then slowly I nodded, my voice catching in a whisper. "Yes." And in that moment, everything shifted. The walls I had built, the distance I had created, the fear I had held onto, they all crumbled under the weight of truth, desire, and the undeniable connection that had been there all along. Chapter 10. After weeks of distance, confusion, and unspoken words, everything finally came to a head. I had spent so long building walls between Ethan and me, trying to protect my heart from the fear of being hurt again, that I had nearly convinced myself I could stay safe without him. But the truth was, staying away had only made everything worse. Every glance I caught of him in passing, every accidental touch, every shared joke with my brother or family tore at me from the inside, reminding me how much I had wanted him close all along. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I couldn't pretend that the weeks of avoiding him hadn't left me aching. That evening, I found myself in the quiet of my apartment, replaying the confrontation from days before. The way he had held my hands, the way his eyes had searched mine, the way he had spoken words I had longed to hear for years. "I've always liked you." Those words haunted me in the best way possible. I realized that hiding from him, avoiding him, pushing him away, it had never been about him. It had always been about me. My own fear, my own insecurities, my own unwillingness to face what I truly felt. And now I couldn't deny it. Not to myself, not to him, not to anyone. I needed to see him. I needed to speak, to explain, to finally let everything out. When I arrived at his office, my heart was pounding so hard I thought it would betray me before I even reached the door. I hesitated, took a deep breath, and pushed it open. Ethan was there, standing by the window, back to me, his posture calm yet commanding. When he turned, our eyes met, and all the walls I had built seemed to crumble instantly. There was concern, there was frustration, there was longing in his gaze. "Lily," he said softly, but the single word carried more weight than I could bear. I stepped closer, my voice trembling as I finally spoke. I've been avoiding you, but it wasn't because of anything you did. I was scared of how much I was starting to feel, scared of being hurt, scared that you were yours, you know. I thought I could protect myself by staying away, but all I did was hurt us both." His eyes softened, and he reached out, cupping my face with gentle certainty. "You didn't hurt us," he said, voice low but steady. "You were afraid, like I understand, but I've never stopped caring, I've never stopped wanting you. I don't care about the distance or the walls, I want you, always have." My tears fell freely now, hot and unrelenting, but the ache in my chest shifted into something lighter, something freer, something I had longed for. I let myself fall into him, into the warmth of his arms, into the reality that the boy who had teased me, who had been my childhood shadow, was now the man who had always been mine. "I've always wanted you too," I whispered, my voice shaking with the weight of years spent hiding and fearing. He smiled, a real, unguarded smile that made my heart ache with joy, and kissed me gently, sealing the truth that had been buried for far too long. In that moment, all the misunderstandings, all the fears, all the distance between us melted away. We finally let ourselves be honest, vulnerable, and completely present. Everything had led to this: the confessions, the near heartbreak, the misjudgments, the lingering past. And now, as we held each other, the world seemed to disappear. There was only us, only the truth, only the love that had always been there, waiting. And for the first time in forever, I knew it was real, undeniable, and ours. The end. This story was brought to you by Romance Hobbit. Thank you for watching.